She followed Hong Kong nobleman Clarence Kelly for 5 years. He is engaged to his childhood sweetheart from a noble family. I broke up with him. He smiled lazily. Judy. Relationships between people are not mutually exclusive. I'm married, you can still stay with me. Later, I deliberately called him to the hotel. With red marks from his brother's bites all over his body, he opened the door for him. Clarence no longer has the dignity he once had. His eyes were filled with uncontrolled anger. I leaned against the door and chuckled innocently. Mr. Kelly, relationships between people are not mutually exclusive. Even though I'm your ex, I can still be your sister-in-law. 1. It's been 5 years since I met Clarence. He called me and proposed to me. The voice was low and calm. Judy, will you marry me? Should I agree? I think back to the day we first met. I was beaten bloody by the debt collectors. Clarence happened to be filming in the slums of Hong Kong City. I ran away and fell in front of him, blood from the corner of my mouth dripping onto the tip of his leather shoe. I struggled to raise my face. The sunlight, along with his gaze, fell from above my head. Dizzying. I have never seen such a handsome man. Dignified and dignified. Like the first ray of warm light floating on the spring river. He squatted down. Wipe the blood from my lips with your fingertips. I paid back the money she owed me. I opened my eyes wide in disbelief, tears welling up in my eyes. Tears flowed down. The heartbeat of 18 years old revived once again and occupied my heart. I almost choked holding the phone. I do. Puff. The person on the other end of the line laughed. Just kidding, idiot. The next moment, there was thunderous laughter from the audience. The show's beautiful host Sharon took over. The tone was very cheerful and light. Surprise! Judy Robinson, Clarence is helping me record a show right now. The proposal just now was a big dare punishment. Don't take it seriously, she said with exaggerated annoyance. I just bet you wouldn't agree. After all, which girl would agree to a phone proposal? There's no sense of ceremony at all. Sharon King is Clarence's childhood sweetheart. The daughter of the King Group, one of the old-school wealthy families in Hong Kong. Before I showed up, they are the golden couple in the eyes of the media and the public. I opened my mouth wanting to say hello naturally. Pretend I don't mind at all. It's just a game, I can afford it. But tears welled up first. I once accidentally saw a wedding ring in his suit pocket. Just that moment, I thought he was actually going to propose to me. I guess I was afraid that my silence would embarrass Sharon. Clarence reminded me. Judy, smile and show some entertainment. Respond to him. It's a busy tone on the phone. On the big screen, Clarence's brows slightly frowned. This was the first time I hung up on him. 2. Because of Clarence's public proposal. Sharon's show has skyrocketed in popularity. The premiere was a success. And I became the laughingstock of the entire internet. I followed Clarence for 5 years and was photographed by the media entering his villa countless times. The Hong Kong media ridiculed them as door-to-door service and a handy bed partner. But Clarence never came out to clarify for me once. Said I was his girlfriend. Even so, I thought he was going to propose to me. Netizens mocked me for not being able to afford it and for being wishful thinking. Is Judy pretending to be innocent? Or is she really naive? How could the young master marry her? Rich people know everything. They go out with the poor and marry the ones who are their equals. But you know what? Judy's face is as pure as a pear blossom, and her body is so hot, this contrast, which man can stand it? It's hard to say whether Clarence will really marry her. Immediately some netizens came out to refute. TSK, no matter how beautiful a body is, it is consumable. Just pick it when it is at its freshest and tenderest and play with it. The old man of the Kelly family has been in the hospital several times. It is probably time to divide the family property. Anyone with a brain will choose Miss Zhao. A strong alliance will give her more family property. No matter how beautiful it is just a daughter flower and cannot bear fruit. But I never wanted to be a daughter that only grew around Clarence. I raised my eyes and looked out the floor-to-ceiling window. In the courtyard, a tall pear tree blooms quietly in the dark night, pure and white. That's what Clarence planted for me. At that time he gently rubbed my head, and his clear eyes and eyebrows were full of tenderness. Judy, the past is over. From now on, you will be like this pear tree, living in the sun and staying by my side. The sun is at its peak. I stood on tiptoe and hooked my arm around his suit tie and kissed him passionately. That day I swore, I will stay beside Clarence in the form of a tree. 3. Clarence's family is complicated. His father is the richest man in Hong Kong and a media tycoon. He married 4 wives in a row, gave birth to 19 children. Clarence is the 3rd son of the wife. Now that Clarence's father is in poor health, everyone knows that it is almost time to divide the inheritance. The eldest son of the first family was a lame man, who died last year. The second wife controls the company's main media business. The variables of inheritance, mainly in 3-bedroom and 4-bedroom units. The third and fourth wives both want to take over Kelly's family entertainment company, Kelly's Shung. Kelly's shareholders meeting will be held at the end of next month. Clarence wants to win over the board of directors and elect him as chairman. Then take his 4th brother Marvin Kelly. Vote out. Take sole control. This will allow Clarence's father to see his own abilities. Divide more other assets. Clarence was resting his head on my legs when we talked about this. Marvin, that rascal, has always loved to compete with me in everything since childhood. Clarence has always been calm and dignified. When talking about his younger brother, he was unusually impatient. If he is elected chairman, he can do anything stupid. Marvin, notoriously stingy and arrogant. He is described as a devil by the Hong Kong media. I once raced on a mountain road during a snowstorm. He was blacklisted by insurance companies throughout Hong Kong. This kind of madman doesn't even care about his own life or death. If elected chairman, they will definitely use whatever means necessary to dilute Clarence's equity. He won't get any share of the pie. I understand Clarence's concerns. Touch his eyelashes with your fingertips. I can help you. He grabbed my hand, stood up with a smile and kissed my lips. Just spend your money with peace of mind. I corrected him. It's not spending money, it's investing. I'm very good at it. Followed Clarence for 5 years. He gave me $50 million in total. But I didn't just lie down and relax. Not only did he obtain a double degree in business and law from D University, one of the top universities in Hong Kong, he also graduated as an outstanding graduate. Still investing. With my professional knowledge, market insight and various insider information, seized many opportunities. In just a few years he turned $50 million into $2 billion. Although it is not as much as Kelly's total assets, it can provide him with assistance in the short term. Definitely no less than King's. Even though Sharon has her back against the King family. But all the assets are controlled by her father and brother. The funds she can easily move are far less than mine. I said that I would stand beside Clarence in the posture of a tree. It's not just verbal talk. I secretly acquired nearly 5% of Kelly's shares in the open market. A private agreement was also reached with key directors on the board. Plus these, Clarence has an overwhelming advantage over the 4th room on the board of directors. The shareholders' meeting and Clarence's birthday are in the same month. I put my arms around his neck. She kissed the side of his face flatteringly. I'm going to give you a big surprise on your birthday this year. Clarence didn't take what I said seriously. Instead, he leaned over and pressed me down on the sofa. He took off my shoulder straps, bit my shoulder, and laughed softly. Then I want a bunny girl, the kind with a tail. Countless times in the past, when I was in love, he made me feel so exhausted that my eyes were red. Then he touched my wet eyes and said softly, "It really looks like a little rabbit." Once upon a time I thought that was love. Now I suddenly realize it. Maybe he just treats me as a bedmate, a pet, a daughter that depends on him. And not one like him. A person with flesh and blood and ideals. I send him investment emails every month. He never received it once. I happily invited him to attend my graduation ceremony and witness me speaking on stage as a representative of outstanding students. He didn't show up. And in the evening she gave me a sexy bra with bunny girl stockings. That said, I wasn't a great student in bed. He treated me like a plaything. Consider Sharon a partner. He wanted to use his frequent public appearances with Sharon to tell the board that he had the support of the King family. This will increase the competitive advantage. I would rather make myself a laughingstock than not make Sharon happy. But Clarence, I will let you know. You picked the wrong person. 4. Finished recording the show. I waited for Clarence all night, but he didn't come back. The next morning, I was woken by the sound of a chainsaw. Clarence was leading a group of people sawing trees in the yard. That pear tree belongs to me. I rushed out in panic without even having time to put on my coat. What are you doing? Clarence. Sharon walked out from behind him holding the viewfinder and answered for him with a smile. Obviously they're chopping down trees. This tree doesn't look good in the photo. It's too lowbrow and doesn't match the temperament of the whole yard. She turned around and urged the workers. Hurry up and start working. Our next show will be filmed here. Clarence nodded slightly. Express agreement. I was completely panicked. This is my tree. Its flowers are so beautiful and white. Why do you say it doesn't deserve this yard? I blocked the tree with my body and shouted at them to stop. No one is allowed to touch this tree. I stubbornly refused to give way. Clarence finally lost his patience. That's enough, Judy. It's just a tree. Now there are so many staff and machines waiting. Do you know how much money it costs to delay it for 1 second? Clarence sneered. Don't overdo it. I felt as if I had been hit in the face with a hammer. An unprecedented feeling of grief, indignation, and grievance filled my chest. No amount of money can buy this tree. Whether you want investment, money, or shares, I can give them to you. I told you I would give you a surprise. Clarence grabbed my wrist roughly and pulled me away from the tree. I don't want any cheap surprises. Judy, what are you pretending to be? Don't you know where your money comes from? You said you didn't want my money. What happened? If I can't win over the fourth room, can you still live like this? My heart ached, my eyes burned, and I slapped Clarence hard. Sharon took the opportunity to order the workers to cut down and saw the pear trees. I yelled, "You have no right to touch it." Sharon smiled condescendingly. Hasn't Clarence told you yet? We're getting engaged soon. That is to say, I am the mistress here. She glanced at me sideways, her tone full of sarcasm. The one who has no right to be here is you. I stood there in a daze. After being with Clarence for 5 years, I never thought that he would marry someone else. Even though Sharon had been clinging to him before. But he never gave it a chance. I asked Clarence, "Is this true?" He didn't say anything, as if he agreed. I questioned him. "If you're engaged to someone else, then what am I?" Clarence said graciously, "Even if I get married, you can still stay with me." Judy, relationships between people are not mutually exclusive. I was completely stiff and couldn't move. So many years. When I was desperately chasing him and wanted to stand shoulder to shoulder with him. He had already drawn the ending for me. Be his lover. Bang! My pear tree collapsed in front of me. White petals fell everywhere. I wiped the tears from my cheeks and looked at him. Clarence. He was so dazzling when I first met him at the age of 18 that I was willing to be blind for so many years. It's time to wake up. Even though it was difficult, I still said it. Let's break up. You are blind. 5. Maybe my eyes are too sad. The moment of passing each other. Clarence reached out to hold my hand. And Sharon wrapped her arms around him. Clarence, the shooting is about to start, don't delay it. Clarence pulled his hand away and chased after him. He took off his suit jacket and put it on my shoulders. Just like 5 years ago, he put a coat on me when I was covered in wounds in the slums. I paused. But I heard him say, "Judy, calm down." Another sharp thorn pierced my chest. Hearing Clarence's words, Sharon's demeanor became arrogant again. Clarence finally chose her. Good. Clarence breathed a sigh of relief when he saw me nod. The next moment I threw his suit jacket to the ground. Since he wants me to calm down, I thought calmly about where to use that nearly 5% stake. Why not use it on his most hated fourth brother? I held my head high, the soles of my shoes treading over my suit jacket. Walked into the villa. Clarence, I hope you don't regret it when you find out what the surprise is. Clarence saw me enter the house. I thought I really couldn't leave him. I discussed the scene arrangement with Sharon with confidence. I went into the bedroom alone and packed my bags. Except for ID. I didn't take anything else. I left the card Clarence gave me on the table. There is 60 million in it. The extra 10 million will be considered as interest I pay him. He thought I was with him just for money. He thought I was afraid to leave him. He was wrong. I really loved him. I left through the backyard door using my fingerprint. It seems as if the evening 5 years ago is still before my eyes. Clarence brought me here, covered in injuries, and held my hand to do my fingerprinting. No one dares to bully you here. 6. I went to Paxing Bay. That's the property I bought myself. It seems like someone is following me. When I went to the underground garage to get the documents, 3 tattooed men surrounded me with evil smiles. I pulled out the microstun gun from my pocket. Before I could make a move, a Maybach pulled up, its headlights bright and dazzling. Marvin got out of the car with a cigarette in his mouth. I threw the strong man who was holding my hand over my shoulder with a swift throw. All 3 people were scared away in just a few moves. Escape in panic. He came up to me and asked, "Are you okay?" I raised my eyes and looked at him coldly. "Fine." He blew smoke rings in my face. "I saved you and you didn't even say thank you?" I reached out and snatched his cigarette, extinguished it at his temple, and it sizzled and burned a tuft of his hair. Marvin rubbed his temples in frustration. "What's wrong with you?" I crossed my arms and looked him in the eye calmly. "You think I can't see that those 3 are yours?" He tilted his head and raised his black eyebrows slightly, as if asking, "What evidence do you have?" I continued, "The guy with the dragon tattoo on his arm, I met him 3 years ago. He was the driver who picked you up after the family dinner. I will never forget everyone I have ever met." He looked at me seriously with a playful expression. "You are such a cruel woman. Only that fool Clarence would treat you like a canary." "Yes, I followed you. I know you and Clarence broke up." He held out his hand to me in the headlights. "Will you cooperate with me, Ms. Robinson?" I took out my handkerchief and wiped my palms. "It depends on your sincerity. I'm a little curious. If Clarence found out I gave the thing he wanted most to the brother he hated the most, what expression would he have?" 7. Clarence's yard was on fire. Not a single piece of filming equipment was snatched away. The entire exterior of the villa was charred. It's easy to guess who did it. Marvin is really a lunatic. I called him and asked him to come to Paxing Bay. As soon as he came in, I slapped him. "Who told you to burn the yard?" He smiled evilly and poked the left cheek that was slapped with his tongue. "Don't you want sincerity?" I snorted coldly. "Aren't you afraid that Clarence's father will know that you are going to set fire to kill your brother?" Marvin shrugged. He was not a clean man when he was young. My uncle's family fell into his hands. He saw my wide eyes and smiled. "Just kidding, I know my limits. In a society ruled by law, starting fires is allowed, but arson is not." After the fire, Clarence called me dozens of times, but I hung up on him every time. When the fire started, he thought I was just throwing a tantrum. Until the smoke grew thicker, he panicked and rushed to every room to look for me. The housekeeper said that it was the first time he saw Clarence so out of control. He searched with all his might. He didn't feel relieved until the housekeeper told him that the surveillance camera showed that I left yesterday morning and never came back. I burst out laughing. He said he cared about me, but I had been away for a day and he didn't notice. He said he didn't care, but he rushed into the smoke-filled villa to save me. Maybe to him I am like a pet cat that he has raised for a long time. Can't bear to. But he has never been treated as an independent person. I handed the contract to Marvin. "I can cooperate with you, but you have to discuss future matters with me first." Marvin curled his lips, took the pen, bit off the cap and signed his name on the contract. "Okay, happy cooperation." 8. Clarence thought I was the one who burned the equipment and was waiting for me to admit my mistake. But I have more important things to do. The next time I met him was at Hong Kong's biggest fashion week. In the VIP lounge. We met on a narrow road. Sharon was wearing an elegant black Hepburn dress, holding the arm of Clarence, who was wearing a well-tailored suit. Sharon smiled contemptuously when she saw me wearing only a simple white t-shirt and jeans. The arsonist now knows to come to Clarence to apologize? I haven't opened my mouth to fight back yet. Clarence pulled her aside. "If I hadn't protected you, Sharon would have called the police long ago. Don't mess with her. We'll talk about the apology tonight. I have something urgent to do right now." He handed me a room card. "If you really want to admit your mistake, Wait for me there tonight. I threw the keycard in his face. Mr. Kelly, you are mistaken. I am not here for you. Clarence didn't expect this reaction from me. He squeezed my wrist and softened his tone condescendingly. Stop it, I don't have time to coax you today. As the two of us were pulling, Marvin appeared from behind, grabbed Clarence by the collar and pulled him away. Don't touch my girlfriend. Clarence staggered a few steps after being pushed. He looked at Marvin and me in disbelief, but he quickly straightened his expression and smoothed his wrinkled collar. Judy, this isn't fun. At this time, the chief designer of the show arrived. Deborah. Sharon saw Deborah first and went up to her to say hello. Deborah, today's show was so beautiful. You are so talented. Deborah nodded slightly. Thanks. Sharon was overjoyed to receive such a response. Deborah is the founder of the world-renowned fashion brand Coin, known as the Eastern Queen Mother of the fashion world. She is also the widow of the eldest son of the Kelly family. He owns 7% of Kelly's shares and is the backbone of the board of directors. Just get Deborah's support. That's half the battle won. Deborah looked past Sharon and saw me standing between the two brothers. There was a light of joy and kindness in his eyes. Judy, honey, you're here. Deborah hugged me affectionately and kissed me on the cheek. The director I had secured before. It's Deborah. 9. My encounter with Deborah. Thanks also to Clarence. We had just gotten together. Clarence insisted on taking me back to meet his family. At Kelly's family dinner, I felt like a mouse that had fallen into a magical world. Feeling dejected. Every move I made felt awkward. Almost all of Kelly's family members treated me like air. All my greetings. Only Deborah smiled back at me. Later I found out that Deborah was just like me. They were all born in the lower class. She was originally a care worker. As a teenager, I met Glenn Kelly, the eldest son of the first family, who was in his 40s and in a wheelchair. The two fell in love. Glenn insisted on marrying Deborah despite all the difficulties. That's all. Deborah, from care worker, became the wife of Kelly's eldest son. That day, after Deborah knew my name, she pointed to the white pear branch in the green glazed vase next to her with surprise. Said she loved pear blossoms very much. I had a great time talking to Deborah. Deborah looked at my cheap clothes. Guess I didn't ask Clarence for money. I can't bear it. Pointing at the pear blossoms in the vase, he spoke to me earnestly. Everything that grows upwards needs light. I understood Aunt Deborah's hint. Instead of gritting your teeth and pursuing independence with Clarence, it would be better to rise to the top with his help. Look back and repay him for his kindness in enlightening us. Like Deborah, who went from being a caregiver to a fashionable queen. On the other hand, it protects the eldest branch of the family that has lost power. I thought Clarence was right to me, just like Glenn does to Deborah. I was wrong. But fortunately, even though the light moved towards others, I already have the ability to shine on my own. After listening to Deborah, I accepted the money Clarence gave me. Write an investment report every month and email it to Clarence. He never looked at it once. But the copy I copied to Deborah was read. Deborah followed me and bought several stocks that skyrocketed. Also in private, he and I became close friends regardless of age difference. 10. Most of our investments are related. I had already reached an agreement with Deborah. As long as I don't give in, there was no way she could agree to Clarence today. Deborah arranged for me to watch the show in the front row. The location is better than Clarence and Sharon. Sharon was so angry that her teeth were itching. The show invited the hottest supermodels from the East and the West, showcasing Coin's new spring staples. It's the second half of the show. I left early. Seeing this, Sharon posted a status of watching the show. You need patience and accumulation to appreciate the beauty of art. He mocked me for coming from a poor family and not understanding art. As a result, at the end of the show, I appeared on stage wearing a dress specially designed by Deborah for this season. My long hair is slightly tied up. A few strands of hair fell naturally beside her cheeks. The white layered tulle skirt swayed like petals as I walked. The theme of the show, "Spring is coming and flowers are blooming," was brought to a climax. At the curtain call, Deborah held my hand and said to all the media and cameras, "Thank you, Miss Judy, for appearing, my muse." The entire internet was flooded with my set of pictures. Is this Judy? She is so beautiful. I've never seen Judy before. I hope I look like this in my next life. This whole pear blossom goddess. Judy and the dress complement each other. It is so beautiful. Some people sighed. Clarence is really willing to spend a lot of money to support Judy. But this time, Judy seems to be sitting with the fourth son of the Kelly family. Damn, there's a melon. The popularity of this show, plus the gossip about Kelly's brothers and me, about my discussion, far surpasses Sharon's talk show. When I was removing my makeup in the VIP room, Clarence pushed the door open. His brows were filled with anger at this moment. Deborah neither agreed to stand by him, nor to sponsor Sharon's dress for the show. Seeing my face, he sighed. Squat down. The big hand gently grasped my ankle. Help me rub away the bruises left by wearing high heels. Suddenly, I remembered that my first pair of high heels was bought by Clarence. I was accompanying him to the dinner. Because I was not used to the environment, my feet were covered with blisters. He noticed something. In front of everyone, the princess picked me up and left the banquet. Take me to the hospital to get medicine. He treats me. Maybe there was sincerity. He stood up and spoke in a lighter tone. Judy, stop it. Come back to me. I sneered. In what capacity? A mistress. Clarence didn't answer me directly, but helped me unfasten the waist belt at the back of my skirt. Judy, you don't know Marvin. He can't possibly like you. There was the sound of high heels at the door. Sharon was looking for him. Clarence, you said you would accompany me for the media interview. The reporters are already waiting. Seeing Sharon coming, he hurriedly put down my waist belt. I have to go now. I was not annoyed at all and reminded him. Don't forget I have a surprise for you. Clarence's eyes lit up. Good. Then turn and leave. 11. Clarence's birthday party. Many shareholders of Kelly's business were invited. Various media were also invited. The seat Clarence arranged for me was in the corner of the banquet hall, and Sharon sitting beside him. In front of many famous media outlets. Clarence was wearing a crisp black suit, holding Sharon's slender waist and holding a goblet in one hand. Officially announced their engagement. Everyone gave a round of applause to express their blessings. Congratulations to this perfect couple. In the past, I was photographed so many times by paparazzi in his villa. Clarence has never publicly acknowledged that I am his girlfriend. It turns out that it's not that he doesn't like to reveal his love life to the media, but I am of low status. Not worthy. Everyone's eyes were on the two protagonists. The guests around me couldn't help but sigh. What a perfect match, a powerful union. Clarence took advantage of the birthday party. He just wanted to announce to the shareholders that he and the King family were about to get married. At the shareholders' meeting, who should we support? You can decide for yourself. The birthday party is over. Most of the guests have left. Only Marvin and I were left sitting in our seats. They faced each other across half of the banquet hall. Marvin was in high spirits. He walked over to me with a smile, took my hand and spoke in a coquettish tone. Judy, where's my surprise? Seeing this, Sharon came over angrily in her high heels and cursed. How shameless are some people. They even showed up at the engagement party. She was too excited and lost her balance, so she twisted her ankle. A pair of hands supported her body. Marvin. Sharon pushed him away with disgust as if he were trash and warned. Don't touch me, I'm your sister-in-law. She reached out to hold Clarence's sleeve and said coquettishly, Clarence, you are my fiancé now, tell her to get out and never see her again. Clarence frowned and used his finger bones to pry open her hand. That's not our agreement. Sharon threatened. Do you agree or not? Clarence ignored her and wanted to take me away. Sharon's mouth pursed, and she simply showed her cards. Okay, if you dare to leave, I will immediately hold a press conference with the reporters and cancel the marriage. Clarence was silent for a moment. Finally, he turned around and hugged Sharon into his arms, comforting her. Be good, I won't leave. Sharon put her arms around Clarence's neck, leaned her face against his shoulder, and gave me a victorious smile. I adjusted my skirt and asked with interest, Clarence, don't you want my surprise? Without even turning his head, he said in a deep voice, Judy, stop messing with me. I just walked forward. She took out the share certificate from the Hermes handbag in her hand. Perhaps, you should know that I acquired 4.92% of Kelly's shares. Clarence chuckled, obviously not believing me. Judy, don't make jokes like that. I walked over to Marvin and handed him the share certificate. I will use this 4.92% equity to act in concert with Marvin. Marvin took the share certificate and raised it. Ms. Robinson is forthright. Clarence then felt a sense of crisis. He let go of Sharon, took the share certificate in a few steps and looked at it carefully. The dark brows were furrowed tighter and tighter. He looked up and asked me in disbelief, Judy, where did you get the money to buy so many stocks? I took away the share certificate. She poked his chest with her index finger and said lightly, From you, of course. Is this your surprise for me? Certainly. I smiled contemptuously. But since you don't care, I plan to give this surprise to your brother. Clarence froze in place. Sharon began to panic. Believe that this equity is real. But she didn't approach Clarence anymore. Instead, she walked straight towards Marvin. He punched him in the chest in frustration. Didn't you say you liked me? What are you doing now? Is your love so selfish? Can't you give up fighting with your brother for the company in order to fulfill my happiness? Marvin didn't hide. He stood still and let Sharon vent, his eyes full of loneliness. I am convinced that Marvin has always had a crush on Sharon. It turns out that what he wanted to compete with Clarence for was not just the company, but the woman. Things are really getting more and more interesting. 12. Tonight, Marvin was unusually vulnerable. Like a feathered peacock. I'm afraid he will do something uncontrollable and affect my plans. So I took him back to my apartment. The most important thing. I need to find out the extent of his feelings for Sharon. Will it affect our cooperation? The lights are bright. The sticky, warm night breeze blew against my clothes and face. Marvin was sitting on the couch on the patio of my apartment, drinking alone. His originally defiant look now turned into a lonely one. I walked over in the night wind, sitting next to him asking, Where did you get this wine? In your wine cabinet. I felt a pain in my flesh. These are all famous wines that I bought at high prices to entertain business guests. He couldn't drink it all by himself. I picked up the other goblet. Fill yourself up. Clinked his glass. You're against Clarence all the time just for Sharon? Marvin looked toward the bright lights of the city in the distance. There was an inexplicable emotion in his eyes. I guess so. After listening, I nodded. No wonder Clarence was so sure that Marvin wouldn't like me. I thought you would laugh at me for being childish. Marvin turned and looked at me. I didn't care and asked him, When did you realize you liked Sharon? He tilted his head back and took another sip of wine, his face slightly red. After thinking for a long time, he said, When I was young, I was very weak and the youngest son in the family. I was a humble boy at home and had no future. Later, when I was in kindergarten, a fat kid snatched my water cup and peed in it. I was very thin at the time, and I was used to swallowing my anger at home, so I didn't know how to react. As he spoke, Marvin's eyes sparkled. Sharon showed up and poured the dirty water in the cup onto the fat kid's head. She unscrewed her own cup and gave it to me so I could pour it over again. She made me realize for the first time that I could resist. That day, I thought my mother would punish me by making me kneel down. I didn't expect that the fat boy's parents would bring him to our house to apologize. I reminded him, You can do this because of your parents' power, which allows you to not have to swallow your anger outside, not just because of Sharon. But Marvin obviously didn't listen, still immersed in memories. It seems that after meeting her, my own energy began to awaken. Forget it, you definitely don't understand this feeling. I answered him in the night breeze. I see. I smoothed back my long hair that was messed up by the wind. I once really liked someone. When I was 18 years old. Everyone around is in a state of despair and despicable behavior. That person appeared different from everyone else, like a ray of light. After listening to my story, Marvin seemed to be choked by jealousy and spoke so arrogantly. If it was me you met that day, I would not only help you pay off your debt, but also beat up those people. He suddenly leaned closer, his voice a little self-willed due to the alcohol. Then will you fall in love with me too? I pushed him away. That's not true. That day, he was the only one who showed up. We had a quarrel over this. They attack each other's shallow love. Finally sigh. The timing of meeting is really important. Young people have shallow emotions, but what about adults? Marvin lowered his eyes. After you become an adult, it's hard to love someone wholeheartedly. I stood up, holding the glass high, the alcohol making my brain excited. That's no big deal. Besides love, there are many other interesting things in the adult world. Intrigues, exchanges of interests, flattery. Aren't these interesting? Marvin was also drunk. Then stand up and clink glasses with me. Yes, adults can still drive, bungee jump, and drink. And the more we talked, the more excited we became. Opened another bottle of wine. The cork popped open. The wine bubbles inside gushed out. Under the night light, a transparent rain of water fell. He took the bottle and splashed the wine on me. I'm not willing to be outdone. Pick up another bottle and water him. Amidst the laughter, my clothes and hair were soaked by the wine. There were reddish wine stains on my white tank top. The feeling of loss gradually evaporated. Against the light, Marvin moved closer. Bow your head. Help me push away the wet hair that is stuck to the side of my neck. Too close. We could smell the aroma of wine on each other. My white dress became almost transparent. The curve is clearly visible. Marvin looked away in panic. I reached out and turned his face back. She looked at him seductively. It's okay for adults when the mood is right. I stood on tiptoe and leaned close to his ear. Give each other a kiss. As soon as the words fell, Marvin held the back of my head, leaned over and kissed me. Strong, raw, and eager. I stepped on his leather shoes with my bare feet, hooked my arms around his neck in response, and kissed his soft lips carefully. Lead the kiss. The touching skin became hot. The smell of alcohol and hot sweat mixed together to create extremely pure desire. It burns away people's sanity. Marvin is an excellent student. Follow my example and use your tongue to please me. The breath is hot and scorching. The kiss lasted for a long time. So long that his face almost turned red, buried in the crook of my neck. The voice is hoarse and dry. Judy. I slid my fingertips down his waist and hooked them around his black belt, my tone coaxing. As an adult you can still. I bit his beautiful Adam's apple gently. One night stand. Marvin's temples were almost wet, and his eyes were wet with endurance and lust. It seems that I can no longer control myself. He picked me up and carried me sideways, then kicked the door open with his long legs. Bedroom. He kissed me almost bitingly, depriving my mouth of oxygen, revealing a beautiful body with firm muscles, like a cheetah ready to pounce. I opened the bedside drawer and handed him the small package. He stopped and stared at me for a long time, but surprisingly innocent. He doesn't know how to use it. I sat in his arms and chuckled. Is this your first time? You're staying pure for Sharon? Marvin was a little annoyed and grabbed my wrist and pressed it into the pillow. Judy, how do you know so much? I raised my toes and slid down little by little. Ask your brother. He was really ignited by these words, and with jealousy he grabbed my ankles and dragged me under him. He pressed on completely. Oh, lingering and fierce. Before I fell into a deep sleep, I thought that these two brothers were quite similar in some ways. They all like to bite people. Afterwards, early morning, my cell phone rang. Clarence. I pulled Marvin's strong arms away from my waist. Sit up and answer the phone. Clarence's voice was low, calm, and a little cautious. Judy, I'm sorry about what happened earlier. I didn't say anything. He paused, seeming a little embarrassed. I don't know how the logic is self-consistent. The company's shares were purchased with my own funds. You'll stand by me then, won't you? I think it's funny. Mr. Kelly, you proposed to me over the phone before, and now you're apologizing over the phone. Can't you be a little sincere? After saying that, I hung up the phone. Marvin heard me and woke up. He reached out and pulled me into his warm arms again, saying angrily, You slept in the same bed with me and called my brother? I blinked and rubbed his head. The tone is innocent. Is it not possible? He pretended to bite my shoulder. I dodged and got out of bed. Your brother will be here soon. I'll go find some clothes to change into. Marvin pulled the quilt. She showed off her slim and beautiful waist and abdomen, which made me jealous. Do you care about him that much? I changed my clothes and came out. You can see Marvin's eyes light up. I was wearing a bunny girl suit. Walk step by step to the bed. The rabbit's tail sways with every step. I sat astride him. Do you like it? Desire burned in his eyes as he looked at me obsessively. Like. The big hand supported the back of my neck and pinched my tail with one hand, dropping delicate kisses and bites. Maybe he knew his brother was coming soon. Marvin is even more. Work hard. 14. The bunny suit was almost torn off by Marvin. The rags were scattered all over the floor. I put on a pure white bathrobe and went to open the door. Clarence appears at the door, holding a bouquet of red roses. He saw me and his smile faded. His eyes fell on the red mark on the side of my neck. Red mark spread across the inside of the bathrobe, more eye-catching than roses. Before Clarence could get angry, Marvin hugged me from behind and rested his chin on my shoulder. Greeted Clarence with a smile. Brother, you came really fast. Clarence pulled Marvin away. He grabbed Marvin by the collar with both hands and pushed him against the wall. The blue veins on the sides of the neck are raised. Why the hell are you here? He saw the wet rabbit's tail on the ground. His eyes were filled with uncontrolled anger and his voice was trembling. Judy, you called me here just to see this? I leaned against the door and said innocently, you said before that you wanted to see the bunny costume. Here it is on the ground. I asked you to come and see it. Aren't you happy? Clarence slammed his fist against the wall, no longer showing his former dignity. Get him out of here right now, or we won't have anything to talk about. I crossed my arms and frivolously responded to him. Mr. Kelly, relationships between people are not mutually exclusive. There was a great deal of anger in his dark eyes. He pursed his lips tightly, suppressing his anger. Next week is the shareholders' meeting. Which side are you on? Clicked his tie. You guess. 15. But I didn't wait until the shareholders' meeting. I was the first to become a trending topic. #Judy threat. It all started when Sharon released a video. In the video, I pointed at her aggressively. If you have the ability, stay in Hong Kong forever and never go to the mainland. This sentence aroused the anger of the people in Hong Kong. Netizens in the mainland also find me embarrassing. This is the first time I've seen a mistress act so wildly. No, who gave her the courage to say this? Pass it on, there is no one behind Judy, we are a family in Hong Kong. I held the phone. Fingertips trembled with anger. This is obviously a malicious edit. She only captured that one sentence. It easily led public opinion to attack me. I contacted the restaurant where the incident happened and requested the full surveillance footage. But I was told that all the surveillance footage from that time period was gone. It must be Sharon's work. However, Marvin was by my side when we had the conflict. He is also the fourth son of the richest man in Hong Kong and has a special identity. He can vouch for me. I will post a blog first to stabilize public opinion. This video has been maliciously edited. The situation was not like that at the time. Miss Sharon attacked me first. Mr. Marvin was present at the time and he can testify for me. After sending it, I immediately called Marvin. It ended up ringing a few times. It will show that you are on a call. He refused to answer my calls, but he publicly posted on Weibo at @edme and responded to this matter. Marvin V. As a Hong Kong resident, I support Ms. Sharon and hope Ms. Judy will apologize as soon as possible. Netizens who have just been appeased. An instant backlash of anger. He rushed to my Weibo and insulted me for being hypocritical and a liar who liked to threaten others. Please petition to have me get out of Hong Kong City immediately. 16. I drove to the company that Marvin often went to. He was indeed with Sharon. See me inside. He carefully protected Sharon behind him. I sneered and questioned him. Is this what you mean by letting go? Marvin lowered his eyes. I'm sorry, Judy, I can't love you. Sharon said she decided to love me, and I couldn't refuse. I'm not like you, who can easily transfer my feelings to another person. In other words, he would rather offend me than give up my shares. He also had to bear false witness for Sharon to show his loyalty. Take the chance that Sharon chooses him. Sure enough, Sharon was very satisfied with his confession. Continue to fan the flames. Marvin, who do you choose? Speak clearly in front of us. She held her head high, as if showing off the results of her dog training. Marvin struggled for a while and said, Judy, I have always loved Chiron, and I cannot respond to your love. Hearing this, I lowered my head and my body couldn't help but tremble. Marvin felt a little distressed and reached out to touch my cheek. Don't cry, Judy. I shook his hand off, unable to hide my smile any longer. This is ridiculous. Who wants to play a love scene with you guys? I really envy those of you who were born with a silver spoon in your mouth. The most important thing in life is to consider who loves you or not. I looked Marvin straight in the eyes. You don't have to respond to my love, because I don't love you at all. I approached him and said word by word. I just enjoy using you and pissing off your brother. Marvin's mouth opened wide and his face turned pale. Sharon spoke first. You low-class people are so pathetic. You never know how precious true love is. She taunted. No one will love you. Look, no one is willing to help you when something happens. She framed someone and she still has the nerve to talk to me about it? I didn't argue with her about it. Since she values love, I will let her see love clearly. I walked up to her, speaking calmly. Yes, I can't get Marvin's precious love. But his precious first time is mine. I showed an expression of wanting more. I tried it for you. It was a good experience. You have a good figure and the duration is also okay. I glanced at Marvin and said quietly, I just wonder if the kiss mark on his chest has disappeared. Will you feel nauseous when you use it? After saying that, I knew he couldn't testify for me anymore. I turned and left. Sharon was stubborn behind me and yelled at me. You're the one who got slept with for nothing. Cheap bastard. Then she frantically tried to grab Marvin's collar. Did you sleep with him? If you can't even handle this, how can you say you love me? 17. I got back in the car. He let go of all his strength and banged his head on the steering wheel. Sharon's words rang in my ears. No one will love you. No one is willing to help you when something happens to you. I took out my cell phone, took a deep breath, opened the chat box. No news from Clarence. The hanging heart finally died. I smiled to myself. Online netizens' insults are getting more and more intense. Negative entries about me dominated several hot searches. Among the many negative entries, there was an outlier. Hashtag I trust Judy as a person. It's Deborah. Coin's official Weibo once again posted pictures of the catwalk where I was the last to appear that day. The caption reads, She came from humble beginnings with a clean record. Deborah retweeted this Weibo and commented, I believe in Judy. See these? My eyes were hot. Who says no one loves me? I quickly uploaded the recording. I already had evidence. I don't want to clarify, I just want to take a look at human nature. Sure enough, none of the men could stand the test. Marvin and Clarence. None of them are trustworthy. That day Sharon suddenly got angry with me. My first reaction was that it was abnormal. Use your mobile phone to turn on the recording mode. The recording clearly records. That day I was blocked by Sharon in a restaurant box and she suddenly attacked me. First she scolded me for stealing her fiancé and calling me a cheap girl. Later, the issue escalated directly to regional issues, and they kept humiliating me by calling me a mainland dog. Let me go back to the mainland as soon as possible. Said I shouldn't have come to Hong Kong from the beginning. I immediately responded, What do you mean by regional discrimination in our feud? We belong to the same motherland. If you talk like that, you should stay in Hong Kong forever and never go to the mainland. The truth came out, Sharon called me a mainland dog and that's why I said that. As soon as the recording was released, public opinion instantly reversed. Sharon is an idiot. She insulted 1.4 billion people with one sentence. She should go abroad. This land cannot tolerate such a disgusting person as her. The King family's good days are over. If I were her father, I would have a cerebral hemorrhage on the spot. My sister song is really the queen. This is the response, so cool. Judy, my God. I will not allow anyone to disobey you. Those of you who just criticize Judy, let me ask you if your face hurts. What right does Sharon have to belittle Judy? The only thing she can show off is her reincarnation, right? Judy went all the way from the slums to become a billionaire queen. She is much more amazing than her. Netizens felt fooled and belittled. The anger towards Sharon also affected the King company behind Sharon. They listed all of King's companies in the mainland and targeted them for boycott. King's stock plummeted instantly. Netizens even spared no effort to criticize Marvin, who spoke up for Sharon. Took over his social media accounts. "You are the one who slandered our Queen Judy. As a Hong Kong citizen, I am ashamed of you. Apologize to Miss Judy. He is a dandy boy who loves to lie. Your father had too many children, so he didn't have time to teach you how to be a good person. Right? The rich are really a nest of snakes and rats. They are in cahoots with each other, brothers. Let's unite as one and make sure they can't escape death." Oh. He cursed at me one by one. People online eventually realized the horror of my situation. Even if they are morally flawed, they still have their families to back them up. If I don't record it in time myself, then I will be nailed to the rack of shame for the rest of my life. Netizens are more aware of how difficult it is for me. They all apologized to me and praised me highly. Judy, the pear blossoms blooming in the slums. Warm, resolute, and gorgeous. 17. Clarence was waiting for me downstairs at Beijing Bay. He leaned against the Maserati and dialed the number over and over again. His dark brows were furrowed, and he looked very anxious. I blocked him, so of course he couldn't get through to me. "See me appear." He rushed to me, pulled me into his arms and held me tight. "Do you know how worried I am about you? I waited for you all afternoon, worried that something might happen to you." I let him hold me quietly. Feel the warm body temperature with the scent of cedar. It used to be the taste I missed the most. After a long time, Clarence let me go. Congratulations on clarifying it. The sunset dyed half the sky red, reflected on the expensive car body. The evening breeze gently blew up Clarence's collar. He asked me carefully, "Does what you said before still count?" In the past, when I was aroused, I would lie in his arms and draw circles on his chest with my fingers. "Clarence, whenever you ask me to marry you, I will definitely say yes." Now he pulled out a ring box from his trouser pocket, get down on one knee and proposed to me. "Judy, I just wanted to form a business marriage with Sharon. The person I really wanted to marry has always been you." He took my hand and put the ring on my ring finger. The ring was a beautiful shining one, the same one I had seen on his clothes before. "Judy, I just discovered these days that you are far more charming than I thought. Will you marry me?" I stared at the handsome man in front of me. He is still the same as when we first met. Dignified and dignified. I lowered my eyes to look at him, tears welling up in my eyes. Then I pulled my hand back cruelly and said word by word, "I don't want to." Clarence froze, his pupils twitching violently. "Why?" he asked eagerly. "Have you never loved me?" I smiled sadly. "How can I not love you?" In the midsummer glow, the cicadas chirped noisily. I squinted my eyes and looked at him, as if looking at another person across a long time. "When I first met you, you were different from everyone I've ever met. Noble, rich, charming, with just one sentence. You paid off my debt and brought me from the slums to the bright villa area." The sunset glow fell into my eyes. "It seems that from the moment you appeared, good things finally happened in my barren life. I know you and I are from two different worlds. I study very hard, learn about investment, wine tasting, and flower arrangement. I want to be closer to your world, closer and closer. During that time, I worked hard to improve myself, and I attribute all the positive changes in me to you. I thought you were the light of my world." Clarence's eyes lit up and he reached out to hug me. "I can still be your light and love you as before." I shook my head, my tone resolute. "No need. Clarence, don't fool yourself. If you had taken me seriously as an independent person even once over the years, we wouldn't have come to this point today. You never opened the investment email I sent you. I've been photographed by the media so many times. No matter how people call me a canary or a peripheral girl, you've never clarified my identity for me. You used my anticipated marriage proposal as a gimmick and used my fame as a stepping stone for Sharon's traffic. I chose Sharon without hesitation and chopped down my most precious pear tree in front of everyone." His expression became extremely ugly. His lips pursed again and again, and his voice became hoarse. "Judy, I'm sorry. You've been wronged over the years. I don't want to watch his poor performance anymore. Directly expose his mask. Stop pretending. When I was wronged by Sharon and judged by the entire internet, you didn't even send me a single text message of comfort. If I hadn't survived this, would you still be downstairs? You won't. You used to treat me as a plaything and a tool for sexual gratification, but now you've discovered that I have other values, so you're eager to lock me up with your true heart. The funny thing is, I never regret meeting you. I walked over and hugged him gently, just like I wanted to do when we first met. Clarence felt there was still a chance, so he hugged me back tightly and swore hurriedly, "No, Judy, no, I will be sincere to you in the future. I really want to love you well. Let's start over." I leaned close to his ear. "Clarence, thank you. It made me realize that I am so worthy of being loved. While your mercy retreated and you treated me as a plaything, I continued to move forward and became better and better. I have not been PUA'd by you. I have given my whole body and soul to you. From beginning to end, you have been clear-headed and calm, and you know how to weigh the pros and cons. Fortunately, I am the same now." Clarence's body went rigid. He realized that this was a farewell hug, and he hugged me even tighter, his knuckles turning white and his voice pleading, "Don't leave me, Judy." I pried his hands apart one by one, my voice devoid of any emotion. From the day that pear tree fell, there was no going back. I don't regret meeting you, but now I don't love you anymore. I love myself. I turned and left. Clarence seemed to have been drained of all his strength. He stood in front of the car in frustration for a long time. It lasted so long that the sunset glow completely fell below the horizon. Tomorrow the sun will still rise. And our storyline, completed and not continued. 18. I didn't say anything in anger. I never planned to pick Marvin from the beginning. It's about joining forces with Deborah. Together we take charge of Kelly's business. Deborah chose me to be the finale model for the show. It's just to create momentum and improve my status and fame. Thanks Sharon for the frame-up incident. My reputation has reached an unprecedented level. Everything is ready. At the shareholders meeting, Deborah's position on the board of directors, combined with my shares, joined other directors. We were able to get Marvin kicked off the board. Clarence didn't gain any advantage either. A reporter interviewed me. "Hong Kong films are declining now. Where can two women like Deborah and I take Kelly's business?" I laughed. Didn't Clarence's father also start out as an ordinary person and gradually build up his fortune to become the richest man in Hong Kong? Deborah has the ability to create the most influential luxury brand in the East. I have the ability to invest and accumulate funds. How come we, such outstanding women, can't lead the company into a new future? 19. Marvin and Sharon never got together. The son of the fourth branch of a wealthy and defeated family. A bankrupt lady from an old wealthy family. The two people who were originally living in a fantasy dream in the clouds suddenly fell into a lower class and had no idea what to do. The two of them cannot share happiness, nor can they share suffering. Marvin doesn't seem to have given up yet. Not only did he show his love to me in front of the media in a high-profile manner, it is also on Changyue Road in the city center of Hong Kong. Planted a pear blossom avenue for me. Want to pursue me again? I remain unmoved. Deborah and I founded the Yua Foundation, which is dedicated to providing financial support to girls in poverty. In the Big Mountain Valley, my team and I went to the countryside to volunteer. I stopped a drunk father and snatched the sharp bottle from his hand, rescued the little girl with messy hair. I brought a medical kit and bandaged the wound on her forehead, offered to sponsor her to continue her studies. The girl had dry and yellow hair and waved her hands shyly and nervously. "Sister, I can't accept your money. I can't repay your support. I am too insignificant." I stroked her hair tenderly, just as Aunt Deborah had told me then. Helping others is a kind of strength. Bravely accepting help from others is also a kind of strength. Flowers must bravely accept the light, so that they can accumulate strength and bloom earlier. No matter how small you are now, as long as you keep growing, you will become a powerful person. The girl's eyes sparkled. "Really? Can I really?" I reached out and made a check with her. "I promise that you will become someone who can protect yourself and help others." The girl nodded heavily and smiled beautifully. Not far away, facing the light, pear blossoms are in full bloom at the foot of the mountain.